Hey guys, welcome to our startup job search course. I'm delighted to be going over everything you need to know about landing a great startup job offer. That's right. Okay, so here are some things we're going to cover. We're going to talk about the resume, of course. We'll talk about how to build up your experience. We'll talk about networking, informational interviews. How can you use informational interviews to potentially meet more professionals? We'll talk about connecting with recruiters, personal brand, portfolio, and much more. Okay, let's get started with our lesson one. So, lesson one, we're going to talk about the resume. One of the things I see when it comes to a resume is a lot of times the resumes are too broad, too generic, don't know what the role it is targeting. And what you want to think about is to think like a marketer. So a marketer wouldn't just go out there and promote the product to everybody, right? Because the product is meant for someone specific because they have personas. They deliver the right message at the right time. So that's how you want to think about your search, is to think like a marketer. So have a laser focus approach. But how can you have a laser focus approach? Well, you want to figure out the job titles. What are you targeting? What are some competencies needed for those job titles? And that's very easy to do. You just have to be self-aware and then figure out what kind of things you want to get into and what kind of things you don't want to get into, right? So think about that as a general strategy when it comes to your search. Be laser focused. Okay, so here are some tips on the resume. Obviously, it's still being resumes are still used, so you still want to have a copy ready to go. Here are some sections to include: professional profile, include your technical and soft skills, experience, volunteer awards, languages, interest. So languages can be a great differentiator because, well, for example, let's say if you speak French, then if you apply for a particular role and there may not be as many candidates that are bilingual, so you would have an advantage. Interest as well is a good idea because sometimes you might be able to connect with the hiring manager based on interest too. So I think that's a good way to get a little bit beyond the resume, right? Keyword optimization. This is also another important point because especially if you're applying to bigger companies, there are applicant tracking systems that are going to read the resume, and if you don't have the right keywords, then it's going to get tossed out. The way you can have the right keyword is figure out those competencies again, right? For that specific role. For example, let's say if I'm applying to a marketing role, then some of the keywords might be Google Analytics, inbound marketing, outbound. But let's say, I don't have any of those, then the resume is going to get tossed out, right? But let's say you don't have any projects to list. So one way you can do that is to build up the experience for that specific keyword. So for example, let's say I want to have experience with Google Analytics, right? So what I can do is I can launch my own website, or I can even help out a startup to figure out where the traffic is coming from. I can, start working with Google Analytics, and then I can list it on my resume. So that's the way you can get around it if you don't have those keywords. Keep it maximum to 2 pages. For the verbs, use present tense if you are currently at the company. If you're no longer working there, past tense as well. Okay, so let's move forward. And let's talk about the email too. No one wants to hire ratherbephishing@hotmail.com. So use the alumni email if you graduated from school, because they usually give you a nice alumni extension. It's a good way to showcase you graduated from that school. So use that email. If you're still in school, you can also use your school email as well. That's a good one to use. Okay, let's move forward and talk about cover letters. So cover letters are, unless the application specifically asks for it, then most of the times it's optional. But if you're, let's say, emailing a company with a resume, then make sure that the body of the email has the cover letter. And again, the key thing with cover letter, the theme for this course will be hyper personalization. So personalize, look up the company. How can your skill set add value to that? Okay, let's move on to lesson 2 and talk about experience. So, you probably graduated or you're a student, you're like, oh, okay, I need some experience, but like, how do I even get started? So a good way to do that is to get side projects with startup. Now, side projects are things you might do at a hackathon or on a weekend, to be able to build up your portfolio. And a good way to do that is with a startup, because if the startup, especially if it's early stage, then you can directly reach out to the founders and they might be able to assign you some projects you can work on weekend on a remote basis too, a lot of times, because these days a lot of teams start remotely. So it's a good way for you to build up your experience. I included a template here for you to use. Again, if you want to do an outreach, personalize it. So look up the company, see what they do, and how you can help that startup. So personalization is the key. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what if, I don't know any of my skill set, or what am I good at? Then you have to become self-aware. And the way you do that is you have to try a project and then see if you like it or not. You can also ask your friends and family for feedback, because chances are they would be able to tell you. Self-assessment is another one you can do. Some of these online self-assessment might not be a bad idea. Self-reflection, this could be in the form of journal or blogging. And of course, we have something with Founders Beta. We have the Founders Lab, which is a lab dedicated to building new ideas, a new business model, and you can maybe potentially get involved with the side projects there. We're always working on exciting things. So check that out as well. So I can show you the link here quickly. So this is what the lab is about. You can check it out, and you can see, get a little bit more idea about the lab and what kind of things we work on. So check that out as a potential resource. Other ways to build up experience: volunteer at the not-for-profit. This is a great idea to do it. And a lot of people actually might have started their career something along the lines of this. So it might help you discover, the projects you like. But the key thing is the role has to be aligned with your skill set, because if it's not, then there's no point, right? So make sure there's alignment. So if you want to get into marketing, then find a marketing project, right? Okay, so let's move forward. Plug into communities. I included all the Founders Beta channels here. We get a lot of amazing opportunities being shared. So it's a great way for you to be part of the community, be plugged in. And I listed everything here from our online forum. You can check out our online forum here for potential opportunities here, whether it's a startup competition, whether it's a volunteer or startup event. This is a great page. You can check out, we have a newsletter as well. This one goes out on a monthly basis, so you can subscribe to that too. And we have a startup magazine too. You can check out. Sometimes we have a career spotlight where you can read more about how did those professionals got into startups. Get active with events. This is another point. Obviously, not all events are going to be any good, so you have to be selective. Take online courses while you're doing a search. It's a good idea because you can brush up your skills and learn. We have many exciting courses with Founders Beta. So if you're interested in specifically get into startups or let's say marketing, then we have all the right content for you. And okay, lastly, you can talk to experienced professionals to get more ideas about how they got into the field and so forth. Okay, let's move forward and talk about lesson 3. We have the social media profiles. So the social media profiles, this all depends on which platform you're on. So I think for Facebook, for example, you want to keep everything private. You can still be part of groups. That's a great idea. You can still comment and stuff. But I think it's a good idea to have the privacy on. Twitter is a good way to use it professionally. So you can start posting content about, your industry. Where do you see it going? You can curate the content. Even let's say you're not necessarily writing one, you can what's called DJ the content. So you can do a lot of DJing on Twitter. LinkedIn too, you can get recommendation from your classmate, even professor or people that you worked with previously. It's a good idea to do that. And you can also publish content in there too. Instagram, Instagram, unless you use it professionally, it's probably better to keep it private too. Okay, let's talk about networking. So networking, you want to think about the quality of your connections, right? Not so much how many connections you have, but if it's more of a quality. And what's even better than networking is to build a community around your personal brand. So these are your supporters, these are your mentors, potential advisors. And the way you do that is you reach out, you connect, you start adding value, because in that way they're willing to support you too. So when you're doing networking, let's say you're doing outreach to founders specifically, you want to, again, add value. And the way you do that is, you can reach out to founders and say, hey, I'm going to show you a new way to win customers, or I'm willing to share my marketing notes from the conference I went. So that's a good way to add value and get the founders to respond to you, because otherwise, people also email me all the time. They say, oh, I want to, they say, oh, let me pick your brain, right? Nobody's waiting for that. And especially founders are extremely busy in terms of running the startup and everything. And they put years of blood and sweat into building a startup. So they're not just around available to share everything. So definitely add value and you'll have a great response rate. And we have something called Founders Coffee. This is a great way for you to network. This is a vetted community, so people have to apply with their skill set, and you can potentially arrange coffee meetings through our platform too. So it's a great way to meet founders, but also experienced professional as well. So check out Founders Coffee there. Let's talk about asking for introductions. There's something called social currency, and social currency is all about, you help your network, but the network also helps you. And sometimes, let's say you want to get connected with somebody that works at company X, and your first connection is connected to that person. And the way you do that, you can reach out to your first connection and you can ask them for introduction, to have an introduction to that person that is working at company X. And I have put a template here, so you can definitely personalize it again based on your connection. But the first degree connection, you want to make sure that's a close connection to you that is willing to, give you an introduction. So, okay, let's talk about informational interviews. Informational interview is another great way for you to meet experienced professionals. So usually university career centers, they have this binder with a list of alumni. You can go through the binder based on industry, and you can look up their profile and then see if it's interesting for you to connect with them. And usually it's 30 minutes. You ask them about how did they get into the job. You gain more insights about the industry. It's not necessarily asking for a job. So I put a little a template here again for you, and you can certainly use it. But again, the theme is hyper-personalization, because that's going to help you get a better response rate. Connect with the gatekeepers. So I put some notes on recruiters. So when it comes to recruiters, I think it's all about maintaining good relationships. So whether it's online, offline, and sometimes, let's say if you do get approached and the job is not a match for you, pass it on to your friends, right? Just do stay in touch, because even, let's say, if the job doesn't match to you, then 6 months later, there might be another opportunity. So check out these tips as well. Online resources. So these are some sites to check out. Obviously, a great starting point. Again, Founders Beta. We have a startup job listing here, which I'm going to show you around. So this job listing gets updated on a weekly basis, and they're all fresh postings here. You can come in and check it out. These are also the resources which we talked about it. We have the Y Combinator startup job feed here. You can take a look. And this is great because Y Combinator is a great accelerator, and there's startups such as Airbnb. Who knows, maybe you want to work there. So check out this feed as well on a daily basis. Okay, we have also Facebook groups. If you want to stay in touch, we have a startup jobs group on Facebook. So check that out. Also, Y Combinator has something for engineers specifically, so you can check this too. University career listings, that's also a good starting point. Sometimes they have good postings, so check that out as well. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of tools here. So some of the tools here we have, these are more for outreach. And so I have a video extension tool that you can use by Vidyard. So let's say you want to work at that company, then you can even send them a little video about yourself as a potential cover letter and with your resume. So it's a good way to stand out and also see if the video was watched. So, but this again depends on the company and if they value video, right? Because that sometimes it might not be relevant. But check that out as well. If you want to look up email addresses of the company, you can use this tool here. If you want to see if your emails are being opened or not, this is a good way. Again, HubSpot has a tool. You can use that as well. In terms of strategy, we talked about this a little bit before, but try to spend your time applying online, but not all the time, right? So apply online, go to events, take a course, work on a side project. As long as you're doing something, that's the key, and try not to stand still. Okay, let's talk about the personal brand a little bit. Personal brand can be a huge differentiator because it's all about your values, what you're meant to accomplish, where can you add value to the companies, right? So, but one of my favorite tip is reinvent yourself, and you see that in professional athletes, right? Like for example, Federer is always evolving, always adding new elements, whether it's a trick shot, whether it's a court positioning, whatever it is, right? Like he's always adding new things, because if you don't, then eventually the skills are going to be obsolete. So keep that in mind as you are working on your personal brand, and always believe in yourself. Okay, personal portfolio. This is a little website. This is your online presence. It's a great way to get out there and market yourself, market your personal brand. It's a great way. You can share content. You can showcase projects. I have my own personal portfolio. You can check out on ericrafat.com. You can see my personal portfolio. I listed all my projects, experience, and so forth. And if you need help with that, let me know. You can just reach out. And I have something on the general philosophy on the search. Remain persistent. A lot of times there's going to be many rejections. So keep that in mind as you are going about your search. And lastly, we got, if you need personalized support, you can talk to us and get some support. Here, I'll show you around. You can come on the site here. And if you need help, let's say with the mock interviews, if you need feedback on the resume, okay, I went to the wrong page. Okay, let's go to right here. Okay, so this is the page that you can come here and book us if you need help. Okay, so that should wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this course, and I hope you land an offer soon. Definitely keep us posted, and check out foundersbeta.com to stay connected with all the resources. Thanks again, and cheers.